Hello, I'm Mark Friedman, and today we're going to look at how we could use Excel to solve managerial accounting problems. Now, while this problem is from the Friedman-Werner textbook, you can just copy the spreadsheet information onto your Excel file, and then we'll start from there. Please note that in these exercises, when we're talking about the year 2000x6, that year is 1 year after 2000x5 and 1 year before 2007. Number 1, enter the correct classification code in column A. The classification codes are found in the range of B5 through C9. The first item we have, the description is metal used in production. That will be direct material. Direct material is a material. A material is something that we purchase from outside that is going to be used in the production of the product, and we have deemed that we are going to trace it. Wire, used in production. It's used in production. It was purchased from outside, but we're not going to track it. So it's not a direct material, and therefore it is part of the manufacturing overhead. Factory supplies are small items being used in the factory. That is obviously not direct material. That will be manufacturing overhead. Depreciation in the factory is occurring in the factory. It's not direct material. It's not direct labor. It will be manufacturing overhead. Depreciation on the sales office. The sales office is not in the factory. That will be a selling and administrative. Sales salaries, not in the factory, selling and administrative. Assembly line cost is another name for direct labor. Those are the people who work on the assembly line. There's an assumption that there is a variable cost, and there's a one-to-one relationship between input and output. Direct labor. Factory security guard. Factory, not direct material, not direct labor. Manufacturing overhead. Factory supervision. Manufacturing overhead. General accounting cost, not in the factory, selling and administrative. Depreciation on production equipment. Production equipment is in the factory. Manufacturing overhead. Depreciation on sales office equipment, selling and administrative. We've now completed the requirements for number 1. Enter the correct classification code in column A. 2. What is the cost of the direct material used? What is the cost of the direct labor used? What is the cost of the manufacturing overhead? Somehow we want to sum up the items that we have. In B29, direct material, DM. In 30, the direct labor, DL. In 31, manufacturing overhead, MOH. Now I want to come up with a formula which will accumulate all the amounts every time a DM appears. In D29, we want to put in a formula that will sum, based upon the classification, the amounts. In D29, equal sum if, open parentheses, select B13 through B24. We want this also to work for the next row, 30, and for 31, so we want to freeze the range. We call that making it an absolute range, and we do that by pressing down the function for key. Notice that puts dollar signs in front of the B, in front of the 13, in front of the B, in front of the 24. Comma, the criteria, B29, comma, no dollar signs, and the amount, D13 through D24. Again, I need the function F4. Close the parentheses, hit the Enter key, and now let's copy that down. The total product cost in D will be a summation of the direct material, the direct labor, and the overhead. So in cell D32, with your right hand, hold down the alternate key and press the plus key. Equal sum will pop up, hit the Enter key. And now for the cost per light fixture, equal the production cost for the year divided by the number of lights, fixtures, 24.29910, too many places. Let's round that. Equal round, open parentheses, D32 divided by D2, that's the number, comma, and then 3, the number of decimal places. Hit the Enter key, and there we are. That looks good. Let's look at an easier way to summarize all of the data. It's called a pivot table. First, select the range from B12 to D24. The classification, description, and amount. And we're going to name this, so we go up to the name box. This area is called the name box. Click on that, and we'll call that Table 1, and Table 1 without any spaces. So when you're naming a range, you give it a name without any spaces, then hit the Enter key. Then let's click on another cell, pull down, and go back to Table 1 and make sure that the correct area has been selected. Notice that there are specific rules for the pivot table. The first row, in this case row 12, must contain the names, classifications, description, and amount. Also, there are no spaces in the rows. What we're going to do is to select Insert and Pivot Table. And it comes up and says, what is the table name? And we're going to just put in Table 1. We want it to be on the same worksheet, the existing worksheet, in cell E29. Select OK, and notice how the screen has changed. On the right-hand side, it says Pivot Table Fields. One is classification, which is the classification from B. That's going to be our row. Click on classification and drag it down to row. And the amount from column D, click and drag that to values, close it up, and we're finished. Here we have the direct labor, the direct material, and the manufacturing overhead. Let's change the metal used in production by adding 1,000,000 in front of it. Notice that the SUMIF changes automatically. The pivot table is not live. First, look at the menu. Now select a cell within the pivot table, and it changes to Pivot Table Tools. Select Analyze, and now refresh. Refresh all, and now it's updated. So the pivot table does not update automatically, while the SUMIFs do. Over here we're working with a small amount of data, but pivot tables are used to analyze big data. Excel is a very powerful program. We'll look at more items that we can be doing next time.